contributed significantly to public education in Tacoma and throughout Washington as well as the United States. He is currently the executive director and head Hopeologist for the Kids at Hope Northwest Resource and Training Center and offices out of the Gary and Carol Milgard Family Hope Center. In the last 4 years, he has trained nearly 2,000 what they call treasure hunters in the Northwest region. Kids at Hope Northwest now has practitioners in 9 school districts, Boys and Girls Clubs of South Puget Sound, Tacoma Rescue Mission, Emmanuel Apostolic Church in Bremerton, and all Hope Center tenants, to name just some of the 50+ partners. The city of Bremerton also passed a resolution to become a Kids at Hope city. These practicing treasure hunters include, but are not limited to, teachers, bus drivers, principals, food service workers, high school students, school district superintendents, and other administrators, early learning professionals, tutors, school counselors, parents, custodians, and state-level educational professionals. Over 40,000 young people in the region are benefiting by interacting on a regular basis with one of these Hopeologists. Wally has had an extensive career in education, marketing, sales, at national and international levels. He's involved in loads of community organizations, Boys and Girls Clubs, Rotary Clubs, Lions Clubs, Communities in Schools, Dance Theater Northwest, Lakewood Parks and Recreation, the College Success Foundation, and numerous other community organizations. He has done so much, and it has been a part of the Kids at Hope Institute at Arizona State University and Kids at Hope University. He's delivered presentations at practically every state organization, Gear Up conferences, Washington State Nutritional Association Conference, Military Child and Adolescent Center, anything you could name that involves children, Wally has been there. And it is my distinct privilege and honor, really, to introduce to you Wally Endicott, the head Hopeologist.
Thanks, Dr. Young. It's really an honor for me to be here today. I met Dr. Young about 4 years ago. We kept running into each other all around the state, and we've created a partnership at Evergreen, and we continue to develop that deeper. So, and this is part of it, I believe, and we've been at this for about 15 years or so, conducting these trainings for about 12. And what we know, what the research shows, is becoming true, and we're on to something. So I don't have I'm going to just tell you a little bit about what I'm going to present, because I didn't create that slide. I'm going to start out with leadership versus bureaucracy. I know that's part of what this is about, so I'm going to start with that, to explain how we define leadership and how that fits into an organizational structure versus the bureaucratic end of it. I'm going to talk about the eyes of change, because that's really what we're talking about. If you're going to be a great leader, and the stuff that you're studying now, we have to be at the forefront of change. It happens so rapidly in today's world. You've got to be aware of where we're heading and how to lead people in the right direction. Sometimes people have great intentions, but if they don't act intentional, those intentions can sometimes cause the opposite effect. Act risk versus at hope is one of those examples. There's an overriding issue right now, I believe, in youth development, so that'll be a second brief little part, which is that youth across the country are telling us they feel hopeless and disengaged. They feel hopeless and disengaged. That is a health issue. Then I'm going to briefly cover, spend some time covering what we discovered in our research. We spent 7 years with Arizona State University with this regional research, and that synthesis is available to you all if you want. And just explain this cultural framework of what we think needs to be done to create asset-based models in the youth development field and in schools across our country. We've got some tremendous research that shows when we focus on culture, kids perform better in all aspects of their lives, including academic. But it's a bit of a mind shift because we're not focusing on that cognitive necessarily. That's part of it. But we're making sure we include that affective side of the domain as well. And we all know this, so this research I'm going to show you isn't anything new for the most part. We all know this. How do we intentionally move forward? How do we intentionally move forward in a Hope Square community to invite all caring adults to interact with each other and with our youth in an asset-based manner so that they're at hope, not at risk. When we define kids as at risk, it takes us down a dangerous slope, I believe, because what happens is the adults that work with kids that have those labels change their definition and they lower their expectations. It's not necessarily intentional, as I mentioned, but because of that label, they'll lower their expectations about those children. And it's wrong. It's wrong. It's dangerous. And then finally, I'll briefly cover what's been going on with the Kids at Hope movement here in this area. A recent grant we got from Hillgard, we're creating Hope Square communities. The first one is right here on the hilltop. Very exciting. The first trainings, I really would like to refer to them as empowerment seminars rather than trainings. It's going to be March 6th and then March 24th. First one will be at the Oasis of Hope Center and then at the Al Davis Boys and Girls Club. And so I'll share that information. So as I mentioned, the first thing I wanted to talk about is culture versus bureaucracy in a system set up for organizations. So I believe most of you have already studied some of this and are looking strongly at what leadership is. So this is just something that we created a few years back because some of the struggles that we have are, we're talking about changing culture. That's huge. Then we have 60 years of Beyonce research, which is another big, huge group of information that we try and get to folks and then change. So we know we need to move in small steps. It could be overwhelming. And we know that in order to lead this cultural framework, it takes leaders within a bureaucracy. So one of the things that we have to do then is find leaders. We have to find leaders, and that can come from anywhere. So this is one of the things that we like to share, that they can be opposing forces. Every single organization in their structure has a bureaucratic side and they have a cultural side. What I see a lot in the education field is that educators in those buildings focus a lot on the bureaucracy. That's what they focus on. And they're going to be efficient. We're going to get kids off on the bus. We're going to make sure they move through the halls when the bus rings. We're going to feed them lunch. The staff's going to sign their paychecks, that type of stuff. We have to have it. Okay, so that's about Being efficient is about managing or administrating this bureaucracy. The reason it's compromised is because this commitment is formal. So commitment levels go from lip service to formal to genuine. And in order to move on culture, there has to be a commitment. So in other words, it can't be mandated if it's culture. That's the mandated part on the bureaucratic side. We're doing that because we have to. The only way we can really go from good to great is through culture. So if you look on that side, we need leaders, not managers. Some leaders are both. Some aren't. But it just means you have to make sure that works. We're going to be efficient with the management side. So it's really leadership. Culture is about a shared belief system. We have to have a shared belief system, some common language, some rituals, if we're going to move our culture forward. And I'll explain some of that in a bit. Our shared belief system is that all children are capable of success. No exceptions. No exceptions create some dilemma. And we've seen that time and time again across our country with some surveys we do. People find it's really easy to say, yeah, I believe all kids are capable of success. But when you pose the question, do you believe all kids are capable of success? No exceptions. And that's where that dilemma starts. There are adults who cannot yet buy into that. And so our job is to try and move them to that level. Because if we don't all agree that means we're willing to throw kids away. I don't know about you, I don't think that's acceptable. And it's okay if you can't get there, but maybe you should go on and do something else. Not work with you. Any questions on that at all, or comments? Great, thank you. So I'm going to find that blocker. So the second slide I want to show you also has to do with leadership. And how to change a culture. So if you think back to that previous slide, on the bureaucratic side of a change in an organization, the institution says we're going to implement this new really great program. It's a reading program. It could be whatever. And this is going to change the lives of kids, right? It's awesome. So all the bosses step and they say, this is what we're going to do. We're implementing it. The rest of us are out here that are going to be the folks on the firing line. And they tell us, oh, here's your incentive. You're going to get 6 hours pay. Because you're going to go through this training. You're going to see if you're going to collect money. So that's mandated, right? Now you finally get the information on this new really great program that's going to change the lives and make the world a better place. And you are supposed to be inspired to go back and implement this. Has anybody seen this before? I know it's been around. I got this from Dr. Don Covey out at our Masters Institute of Phoenix last year. He does a much more and better job of this, but I'm just stealing it for this short interval. So if we're going to change the world and implement a cultural change, we just flip it. The first thing we're going to do is inspire you. And if y'all are here to get educated and learn about how the changes you can make and the impact you can have on the world, and I can tell you that every kid's capable of success, no exceptions. Hopefully that'll inspire you a little bit. And so the first and foremost, what we want to do is inspire you. Very next thing is to empower you with the information. Well, after that, the incentive is going to be, I want to do this. I would do this whether I got paid for it or not. I'm going to choose to help change the world and bring an at-hope culture rather than an at-risk one. Then we implement it. Then we go on to implement it. And at some point, as these move through different organizations, it becomes part of that institution. And we'll talk about that a little bit more in a bit. the first and foremost, we need to talk about what do we believe and what do we value. It's kind of low, sorry. What do we, but all I'm saying is that conversation needs to take place beforehand, and it has to be more than just an academic exercise. Organizations have vision statements and mission statements, and I talk to, if I have 40 professional adults in a room and they're educators and I say, oh, what's your mission statement? Maybe 1 or 2 out of 40 are going to really know it. Because somebody got together in a room and they wrote it down, and this is really cool, this is our mission, this is our mission, and then it gets put away. So if we really need to live that, if it's really truly our mission statement, we need to base things on what do we believe and what do we value. We believe all kids are capable of success without exception. And that's kind of groundbreaking and it scares them. We believe every kid's capable of success without exception. We're going to get into what holds some people up in believing that. Part of it is how we define success. What do we value? We value every adult that works with you. Every one of them. And that's most people on the planet. Because at some point or another, you're going to interact with you, whether it's from a parent or a bus driver, or a food service worker, or an educator. So that's kind of what moves us forward, what we value, what we believe. I'm going to get in next to what I mentioned is I think this is the biggest problem right now facing us as youth workers. That 50% of the kids from 5th to 12th grade across our country are telling us they don't have hope. And this is Dr. Shane Lopez. Lopez and Snyder were the first folks to develop what we call a hope scale. A hope scale. How hopeful are you? These guys have been doing this for 25 years or so, or 30 years. And so the way Shane, we've worked with Shane quite a bit. The hope index, he defines hope as the ideas and energy we have for the future. So it's not just this dream thing that, oh, we're dreaming about this great future. It's also knowing we have the energy, meaning you feel you have the skills and talents because the adults that have been around you are making sure that you're a hopeful individual. And as you can see, if you read that, you can see that that drives a lot of stuff. Shane's been following high school kids into college for 10, 12 years. That's where he gets that data. He gives them the hope scale test, and he looks at all that other, all that testing stuff. So hope's the great equalizer. And then the second thing kids are telling us is half of them are not engaged in the academic process, and 20% of them are actively disengaged, meaning they're trying to sabotage their education as well as others. So that's kind of the world that you're facing when you go out to do the student teaching and become an educator right now. So I think it's important just to know it, but I also know that by the end of this session, you're going to understand a little bit more about how we change that. And how, and really, even though it's a complicated issue, you're going to find out how easy it is. It's really not that difficult. Kids want to be loved and they want your attention. And if you can give them those two things and follow this stuff, you'll make lots of friends with them. They're amazing people. That, by the way, so that's this gal. Well, it's a 10-year study. It's a 10-year research project. Nothing like this has ever been done. The second year portals were closed recently, but I checked just a couple days ago that the report back isn't done, but you're gathering that data. And at some point, as we move forward, if somebody has some questions on this, we don't have time right now, but I can give you a lot more information on how to take part in that and how excited we as kids at Hope are to have this, because it's no charge. So that's the aggregate totals. When organization schools take part, you can get their individual totals as well. We can compare that. So, kids at Hope. Let's get into what it is we do. Well, we decided to study what was right. And Don Clifton is actually, you can see, oops, Gallup's misspelled there, but is also owns Strengths Institute and Gallup Research for chain works. So he was one of those early guys in the early 60s that started the positive psychology. And that's just a great statement. You know, let's do what's right for people. Up until the 50s, we didn't do that. It was always pathology. What's wrong? We're going to fix people once we know what's wrong with them. And so we do the opposite. Real briefly, we did this multidisciplinary review at Arizona State University. So there were 7 different genres from psychology, sociology, medicine, youth development, juvenile justice. We did this review of all the research that was already there and asked some of our own questions as well. Then we took it out into the field, and so I was one of the first 100 treasure hunters to be trained back in 2000. I was running the East Side Boys and Girls Club at the time on the East Side of Tacoma, and we created a Hope Square culture there. That was, I think, it was pretty fabulous and had a lot to do with our ability to go from 60 kids a day to 240 because we brought that Hope culture to the building, and people wanted to be there, kids and adults. Then as that moved forward, we developed some other things. We know a lot better what to do today than we did back then. We've got about probably closer to 600,000 kids that have at-home environments, so they have treasure hunters in their lives. That would be on a daily basis across the country. We've got about 45 to 50,000 here in the Northwest. And as Dr. Young said, about 2,000 trained adults. So this is kind of a way to explain what we do. Translated theory and research into powerful principles and practices, but we offer within this cultural framework rather than a program designed to help out their development. So for such a long time, we've been looking at these programs as the solution to fix kids. And one of the problems with that is, first of all, we define those kids with what their problem is. So now we're going to fix them. And it's inherently dangerous, again, as you know. So there are 3 universal truths that came out of Kids at Home. Oh, Kids at Home. I guess it's just one of those tech deals. It's just a school, a bunch of kids that are at home, and they know it, they talk about it. So the first truth that came out of that research is just the self-fulfilling prophecy. Right? Kids will succeed if they're surrounded by adults who believe in them. And we know the opposite is true. And we know that everybody in the youth development business knows this. Yet we have too many adults that don't practice it. It does us no good to know this if we don't practice it every day. Again, the only way we're going to get there is with leaders that lead a culture that says, if you work here, you're going to believe this. If you don't believe it yet, we're going to give you a chance at it. And after a year or two, if you still don't believe it, you're going to be so uncomfortable in this building that you're going to leave. You'll leave. And if any of you are interested in teaching, one of the reasons I'm also collaborating with PLU, another partner. Both Dr. Young and Dr. Klein and people at PLU, you talk about students going out for their practicums and coming back and going, I'm not sure I want to do this. Because they can't get into negative environments from the adults that work in those buildings. Not necessarily, but in some it's going to happen. So they're being very intentional about trying to find, rather than just going to a district now and saying, here's all these student teachers we're going to get is, we want them to go to these particular schools. They're identifying kids at both schools or schools that have asset-based loans. So it's very powerful what we believe. So we're going to get there. We're going to get to this. When we can move everybody in an organization to believe this and practice it, and it goes from me to we, it's a powerful thing to see. At some point, you'll get some information that will invite you to do a tour, do a walkthrough with the kids at Hope School that's practicing this. So that unites us, right? Belief systems unite us. Mission statements can divide us. We're going to do a quick activity right now for you. Yes? One so far. Kids will succeed if they're surrounded by adults who believe in this. So we're still on the first one. Right? Self-fulfilling prophecy. We surround kids with adults that believe in them. They have a great chance to succeed. Right? And so it's the adults, plural. It makes it so much easier for all of us when we have a whole room full of adults that all believe this. And it's not just us and a few others in a building. And so, and we're measuring that, we'll get into that in a moment. Because if it's true, we don't know. Why don't we measure it? I want you to think about if you have something to write with, it's even better. I'm going to give you like 2 minutes. Write down your personal mission statements. If you're working with kids, write that down based on your relationships with kids. How do you put that with that kid? Why are you taking up space on the planet? Your personal mission. As you know, mission statements are just a couple seconds. We're going to give you a couple minutes, and then we're going to come back and share some and put this into context with mission statements and belief systems. Okay, who would like to be the first person to share their personal mission statement? Can you speak loudly?
Hello, my name's Tim. Appreciate your words. Be a loving, caring, inquisitive, intelligent adult that I want our children to be.
Be the caring, inquisitive, loving adult that he wants to be. A role model. So your name was Tim, is that right?
Yeah.
So let's say I'm working in a building and Tim's in there and I'm in there and a few other people are in there. We've got a kid who maybe at home is, well, you know what? Everybody is always focused on what they do wrong. All the things are wrong. And he really just needs a role model. And let's say I really can't connect with him. Like it's perfect. We're not expecting to connect with every kid. What we want to do is get every kid connected. So I'm struggling. I just don't have that relationship. I really know that what Will really needs is a role model who can be caring and loving and show him what good adults do. So what am I going to do? I can look him up. Well, Tim, thank you. Because I know his mission statement. I know his personal mission statement. So in a kids at home culture, we all know each other's mission statements. Or we try to, and we have ways to move that forward. We won't talk to that specifically today. But Tim, I got some. Kids at home farmers. Who wants to be second in sharing their personal mission statement? Thank you. Okay, right here.
My personal mission statement, I'm Sean, by the way. I set no limits on kids and what they can learn. I start where they are and move forward and provide as many diverse experiences as they can.
Thank you. Very good. No limits? No limits, and how many kids do we have that are shown what their limits are by adults who don't think this, right? And I also like the way that Sean is in, was going to start where the kids are at, right? I think one of the stable success. We're going to get into that in our next university year. But if I'm working with a kid, and maybe people have always they've been labeled, and so they're only going to go this far. But I can see, maybe I find out that this child happens to be play violin, but they don't really have a violin at home. There's rarely get the opportunity to play violin. And I go, oh wow, maybe I know that Sean plays the violin, or somebody plays the violin, I can try and connect those two together. And so, because we know some kids need people in their lives who do not set limits, and we'll always believe in them and help move them forward. So thank you for sharing, both you guys. Oh, I've got one of these for you too. It's a physical bumper sticker. All children are capable of success, no exception. So maybe we practiced here. All right, so who owns those personal mission statements you wrote that. Yeah, they're yours, you own them. Yeah, we don't have time to do some more, but the thing I want you to do now is how do we connect that? How do we connect your personal mission statement to a belief system? So at the end of where you wrote your personal mission statement, write this: because all children are capable of success, no exceptions. So just write it. So now it's one statement. And then reread it. Tim, can you reread your whole statement again as one statement?
He's a loving, caring, inquisitive, intelligent adult that I want our children to be, because all children are capable of success, no exceptions.
Okay. Is that okay with you adding that?
Absolutely.
Lyceum, everybody okay with adding that? So now that unites us, doesn't it? That's what a belief system does. In our country, our belief system that our founding fathers wrote down, Thomas Jefferson, was that all men are created equal. That should unite us. That's a powerful statement, especially at the time it was written. When you think about the conditions then, and most of those folks that were part of that had slaves. They made that statement. Hopefully, they were looking at the future. Maybe I'm not really sure, but I do know that we are a lot better than we used to be when it comes to all men being created equal. We're not there yet, and we're not perfect, but I know because I was around in the 60s. Any comments or questions? Yes.
You mentioned that beliefs can unite and mission statement can divide us. I don't know, I'm challenged by that because sometimes people have really warped belief systems. And I think problems with mission statements in a lot of businesses and corporations, they're just not of help. It's nothing wrong a lot of times with the mission statement. It's just such a resistance from individuals to uphold and follow the mission statement.
Exactly. So let me address both of those. Belief systems unite us. I agree with you. But they all different. So they can work both ways.
Yeah.
But they do unite us. Okay? So we want to bring this positive belief system that all kids are successful exceptions into an organization, rather than one that we have a whole bunch of at-risk kids in our school. Rather than one that says, oh, do you know all these parents we have at our school? 80% of them don't even come up here when we have our nights. And they don't even think about the fact maybe those parents got 3 jobs. Maybe just because they're not in the building doesn't mean they don't care for their children. So, unite, belief systems unite us. So, bad or good, they're going to unite us. Mission statements, I'm not saying are inherently bad. I'm saying that they can divide us because there are a lot of different youth-serving organizations in Pierce County. There's a lot of duplicate services going on. When we built the Boys and Girls Club, the very first Hope Center, we invited all kinds of youth groups to come. A lot of them chose not to take part because they had their personal mission statement, and they really didn't want to start. Well, that's the Boys and Girls Club deal. We don't want to go home. Rather than everybody comes together and unites, and it's really what funders are doing right now anyway. Yeah, you're gonna. If you don't do it, you may end up going out of business. So if we all believe that every kid's capable of success, no exception, and we value all the adults that work with all the kids, it should be pretty easy to get together. It doesn't make any difference because in some of these organizations serving elementary school kids and middle school kids and high school, they have all kinds of different functions. They don't need to be like us. When we bring in this common belief system, that really helps unite everybody to have meaningful conversations. And are you doing this just to keep your organization alive so you can get this grant so you can keep getting paid? Or do you really believe every kid's getting success and that's why you do it? So if it's the purpose, if it's truly your purpose, and you're going to help kids, then forget about the rest of that stuff. And just let's get everybody that cares together. And it doesn't cost anything to speak up. It doesn't cost much. It costs nothing to fill a kid with hope. Everybody can do it. From early learning workers, to at-school workers, to after-school workers, to parents, to bus drivers, to business people. So that's one of the things that we're creating on the hilltop is to get everybody engaged and everybody looking at kids in this respect. I hope that helped.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we just did that. So this is what unites us. You write that at the end, and you reread it, and I don't know, I'm hoping it makes you feel a little better. Oh, and I did mention that we had a way to, we have an 11-question survey that we do with staff that work with you, do a lot of the schools. If there's a leader there that's courageous enough to step forward, it's like, let's see how our staff feels about this. 11 questions, it takes less than 10 minutes. This is the first question on that survey, and I can provide that if some of you want it. We'll figure out how to get that email. This is a Likert scale, 1 to 10. Strongly disbelieve, strongly believe, 1 to 10. Statement, all children are capable of success, no exceptions. And where are you at on that? Where are you? Think about that. So we need to be intentional about this. Now, here's my feeling on this. I don't care if you're circling a 1 or anywhere between a 1 and a 9. If you're not circling a 10, you're making exceptions. And I don't think that's allowed. It's okay, it's not bad. We want to get everybody there. There are some things that hold people up. And so our job is to get everybody to be able to circle the 10. What we know right now is 1 out of 2 adults that work with kids will circle the 10. 1 out of 2. But there's reasons behind it, and it's okay. We want to get everybody up there. We also know that for the most part, when you look at this, these aggregate totals, it's about a 6.5 to a 7 on this line. Second question is, where do you, if you were to describe your organization, so if it's in a school, if you look at everybody in your school, where are they at? And what we see is it's 2 points less than where the individual says they are. Then when we say, what about the community, it's another 2 points less. And so everybody kind of, oh, you know what, I'm pretty good at this, but oh, the cohorts, the rest of the people, so. And we're into this position right now with educators where everybody's pointing fingers. And they're at each other. Educators are pointing here, the politicians are pointing there, the parents are pointing, and in reality, we just have this system we've set up. That's wrong. And we need to change it. And my experience with educators is I've met very few of them that really didn't want to do what's right for the kids. I have met a few, but very few. And we need to free them up to do what they want to do, which is what we're about. We want to free the educators up to do what they want to do. So anyway, this is an 11-question thing. There's some other stuff that we assess on it as far as belief systems and connecting with kids and future thought. We're big on goal setting. So this is a result. I have dreams for the future and I believe in myself. Is that an outcome measurement? I know there are some of you here that are kind of working on that end of it. I think this is pretty powerful. These are the kinds of things that kids say about themselves and to each other in a kids at home school. Okay, now we're on the second truth. Something you all know. Anybody doesn't know this? Meaningful and sustainable relationships are important. We all know this. Email. morning early from Deva? Oh, that's you. Okay, so that's the kind of work you're doing, right? Yeah. So we measure this as well. So it doesn't do us any good to know that meaningful and sustainable relationships are important to kids unless we're intentional about delivering those. And not just me. Oh, wow, you know how many kids I connected with today? Wow, yay me. No. How do we get everybody to do it every day and make sure that every kid that shows up in the building has treasure hunter? And I'm going to show you some research here. So, meaningful, sustainable relationships. What we did when we looked through all that literature I mentioned this is one of the really great things that Rick Miller did. He's our founder. We found 4 areas where we say meaningful, sustainable relationships, these interactions take part in any given community. And then we assigned these 4 ACEs. Most of you, and it's kind of a poker thing. It's okay. Most of you know that this is the highest card. And the more aces you get, the better chance you have to win. It's that concept. And they're symbolic. Parent, ace is the ace of hearts. It comes from the heart that's 24 hours a day of unconditional love. It's one of the hardest and the most rewarding jobs on the planet. How many are parents? Excellent. To me, this is the strongest ace. I did a Kids at Hope training on Neil Island with Department of Corrections with male prisoners. And when we covered this part of the training, it got pretty emotional. Because a number of those guys, you probably know the research behind that. It's the granddads and the dads, and they just keep passing on. A number of them realized, oh, wow, I can change this. I can become very smart. That was pretty amazing. I think even if it was just a couple people that were able to come out, there were about 40. And it was interesting because at the end of that, when I did the feedback session, in a group like this, my guess is there's going to be 7 or 8 of this large of a group that didn't get any aces. You're going to see the rest of them. In this group of 40, 2 of those men had 2 or 3 aces. One had 2, one had 3. All the rest of them had 0. A couple of them had 1. So it just validated how important these meaningful relationships are. And here we are building more prisons based on the male population in the 3rd grade or whatever it is. Just expect it. We expect this behavior. And we need to change it. And we can. That's the cool thing about it. We can do this. So, second ace is other caring adults. The more the merrier. We all know there's research behind it that the more caring adults a kid has, a better chance they succeed. We don't care about your job status or your position. You've already learned. We want to train everybody. But now what we're doing is we're measuring it. How do you know you're an other caring adult? Well, you know the child 8 weeks. 8 to 12 weeks is what most of the research shows as far as developing a meaningful, sustainable relationship. You can name 3 positive attributes. You know some. If you only know 2, go back and learn another one. If you're, because we're measuring this stuff. I'm going to show you how. And then you believe the kid's comfortable around you. They don't run from you. They'll look you in the eye and they'll ask you a question. You can have a conversation. Nothing new. When you say yes to all 3 of those, you're giving an ace of clubs to that particular child. High expectations. The research is strong on this too, as far as just successful people talking about adults in their lives who believe in them more as they're growing up than they did in themselves. This isn't to be confused with high-stakes tests. Okay? This is high expectations for every kid. And it's like Shauna had said was, Shauna? Yeah. Meet that kid where they're at and then keep lifting them up. We find their skills and talents. So every kid's This is sometimes referred to as a treasure hunter's ace kid. You're going to see something in a kid that maybe others don't. And when you look at how we measure it, you know something outside of the school hours, you're a go-to adult. So it's a little deeper relationship. That child's going to share some stuff with you when they need some help. Okay. And again, this is 8 weeks in. You do believe strongly that they're going to succeed, and you do help find them. And then opportunities to succeed, and there's every youth developer knows the importance that kids want to become something positive, feel useful, feel competent, feel empowered. So all we do is set them up with that. We set kids up for success. What happens when a kid has success? What do they want? More. More, thank you. Yeah, I mean, it's all research. So when when I was running the Eastside Boys and Girls Club, we had kids come in there 9, 10, 11 years old who had rarely, if ever, experienced success in their lives because all these adults were focusing on what they were doing wrong. So we'd set them up, whatever it was. That was our job. They have some success in their life. We just keep raising the bar, raising the bar. So we move from having good intentions to being intentional. So that's all about success, that they're succeeding around you, and you set them up for success. So you can go online, and this is what it looks like. Let's say, so this is an empowerment model. So, we let schools know that they can do ACEs tracking, and then when they're ready, they come and they say, hey, we think we're ready to track ACEs now, because you have a team in place. And then when they are, we download their database, so every kid's in there. Put it on our homepage, you get a password, you go in, and you go through this scenario where you track ACEs based on that data that we provided, and you set it up so it's by grade, so it's easy to find. It's really not that difficult. It's not a whole lot of extra work. It's taking what you're already doing and just framing it, differently. Here's an example of Oakwood Elementary School at the end of the last school year. 266 students. And you can see there were 1.88% of the kids that had 0 ACEs. So that's 5 kids. But here's what I can tell you about that. Those 5 kids, they started school within the last 8 weeks of the school year. So they were tracked. Remember, it's 8 weeks. So you're not going to do this until you don't get 8 weeks. So in reality, they connected with every single kid in that building, and we documented about it. Pretty cool. And if you look at those last two, we've got nearly 72% of the kids that get 4 to 7 ACEs. They get 4 to 7 ACEs. And the research has shown us that, one relationship, one positive encounter with a caring adult, with a kid in the worst of circumstances, can turn their life around if everything's just right. But the research always says if we can get 4, 5, 6 adults, caring adults in kids' life, they have a great chance to succeed. So let's measure it. We all know how important this is. So the schools where we have great leaders and they take this on and they're changing their culture and they're becoming an at-home organization. Say, hey, let's step up here and see how we're doing. It is not, it's simply to say, let's get better. Let's get better. So now we can try and move more kids into more ACEs. Questions or comments at this point? Second, so the first group was we believe in kids, without exception. Second one is meaningful, sustainable relationships. 60 years of research shows us this stuff. And we need to go beyond believing it, and we have to practice it. Yeah?
I'm sorry, I missed the definition of success we were using in this.
We haven't got there yet.
Okay, but it's coming.
Oh, yeah. What's your name?
Jody.
Hey, Jody. Yeah, we have two. So the third universal truth that we're going to come to really has to do with success. There's a kid that's identifying, this is a 5th grader, who's when I run the meetings a few years back. In a presentation to some adults as well as kids, identifying the ACEs in his life. If it's important, the kids join in. The kids know this language that we have. And they love to interact with each other. They love to have adults come in and talk about what it's like to be a kid at Hope and have treasure hunters in their lives. And they have high expectations for each other. We have the Kids at Hope pledge. We talked about rituals. We have a treasure hunters pledge. So Kids at Hope schools, imagine 3 or 4 or 5, 600 kids getting together every day and going, I am a kid at Hope. I am talented, smart, and capable of success. I have dreams for the future, and I will climb to reach those goals and dreams every day. All kids are capable of success. No exceptions. They like to kind of scream that no exceptions part out. So what happens now is you've got self-affirmations going on every day. You have an opportunity for staff to ask essential questions based around the pledge, because the pledge is based on the research. How are you capable? What are your dreams for the future? So we have kids start showing what that is. What are your skills and talents? Once kids know what they are, their self-worth goes up, and they start building a database of what they're good at. Pretty cool stuff. Okay. I think we're going to come to universal truth number 3. Kids need to articulate their future and plan the desired outcomes at the 4 destination points in life. Articulate their future and plan because they know they have the energy, the skills, and talents to be successful. And what happens is we open up the definition to these 4 destination points. And here's Raul, I think he's about 6 or 7. And then his future thought is a Navy soldier. It's kind of an interesting concept, being a Navy soldier, but anyone wants to be in the military. And I'm thinking maybe it was just a crayon that was left for, because I don't think he was going to go from Hispanic to African American. Maybe that's what he was doing. So you talked about success. Success. So what got us started on this was defining success. How do we define success? Because there's no agreed upon definition of success. Is there? Anybody know? Can anybody tell me what it is? Something we agree on? I talked to state board people, and said, what does that mean when you say you want to be successful? I've had 2 of them say, well, I guess I think we're supposed to pass those performances. And that's why there's so much stress on some of these kids. It's okay to test it, but we put so much pressure, and then that's the only destination point. But that's how they're defining. I had kids coming when I was in high school and said, I didn't pass the using math portion to the WASL, and then they would say, I'm a failure. Because that's the system we created, where we're defining kids by these high-stakes tests. And I'm not saying we don't need to test it. We need to assess what they're good at and how to have dreams for the future. Did you have something?
I was just going to say, I think success is kind of being defined as moving forward.
Is what?
As moving forward.
As moving forward. Yeah. Well, I've been through these in the trainings, and my guess is, anybody else have that as their personal definition of success, moving forward? She said her definition of success was moving forward. My question was, does anybody here have that personal definition of success? So the thing is, nobody agrees. We all have our own definition of success. It's a great definition. Oh, I love it. Without a doubt, if you're not moving forward, you're in trouble, I think. You need to move forward in all aspects of life for our whole life. But it's just that the definition is different for everybody. So here's what we did, is we asked people to write down, we did this 20-some thousand times, and we say, write down your definition of success. And you say it's moving forward. Can you give me a personal example of success you've had? Personal example. Success you've had that you would like to share with us. Anything.
I have been instrumental in helping people feel better about themselves.
Making people feel better about themselves. What a great skill. Anybody else want to give me an example of their success? One thing? Yeah.
My definition of success is to be happy, healthy, well-adjusted, and productive. My example is I spent 40 years as an alcoholic drug addict. And I've been clean sober for 3.5 years now. I've completed 2 years of college and human services field, and now I'm going on to be a chemical dependency counselor. So maybe other people see that there are possibilities.
Not enough. A couple more. Just going to kind of wing it here for a bit. Anybody else want to share personal success story? It's a journey, not an estimate. Can you give me one example of your personal success in life? Your marriage. Thank you very much. Marriage. Let's see one more. Who wants to give me a personal example of your success? What example? Job promotions. Yeah. Oh, well, I already had that up there, but I'm not sure if they were looking at that. But what we have found is we have people write down their definition, and then we say, give me 3 to 5 examples of your personal success. And you guys have covered them all. We talk about home and family. People talk about being married, the kids they have, maybe where they live. They talk about how they get back to their community. It's a big part of our culture in this country. How I get back. They talk about I belong to a Rotary or I coach in the league or whatever. They talk about hobbies and recreation. I play an instrument or I run a marathon or I like to cook or whatever it is. Yeah, they talk about education and career. They talk about job promotions, going back to school and getting a degree in human services. So these are what we call our 4 destination points. We did this over and over again, and every time we do it, people talk about these 4 destination points. We want kids to have future thought, definition of hope, right? Thinking about their future in order to have the energy to succeed when they get there. Well, if we only use education and career as the definition for your future, that kind of limits it, doesn't it? It's kind of a setup for failure, if you ask me. Because how many kids are going to be great, get great grades? Doesn't mean you're not good. Doesn't mean you're not good in academics. But when we change this definition and we open it up, and now we value these other destination points, we can create a better description for our success, and more kids are going to be